So I think we're supposed to take questions or something.
Yes,
Somebody said it.
Do we have questions on this side? Would you use the mic?
Yeah, I think it comes out right. So you talked about the 2,000 stars that we can see.
Hello.
What's the guess now how many stars exist?
It's about.
Would you repeat the question?
Yeah. So the question is, we can see a couple thousand stars in the night sky, but how many of them exist? Within our galaxy alone, it's something like 100 billion to a trillion. Okay, but that's not it, right? There's about 1 trillion galaxies in the observable universe alone. So, and statistically speaking, every one of those stars has a planet.
1% probably have Earth-like planets. It's
That's
still a pretty big number, though.
So it's millions, hundreds of millions of potential, trillions maybe of opportunities to have planets.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, something Mike talked about, which is really quite staggering, is that, I think at this point, right, the question of is there life out there somewhere is an obsolete question. Of course there is, right? It is a statistical impossibility that there is not. The question that's sharper is, where's the nearest life? Do we have to travel halfway across the galaxy to find it, or is it, as Mike discussed, on Mars? Is it in Europa? What's the distance? Not if, not the binary question of 0 or 1.
Are there any questions over here? I have a mic. Sir?
I'd like to ask a question about this AI and the intelligence that's dealing with us here. And the ability to
There's a
just...
mic for you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Am I too loud? Okay, I'd just like to ask about AI and the computer algorithms that can adjust people's minds and do a lot of influence. Whether it's right in China or left here, or whatever, the general thing. Well, how powerful is that to override free thinking or questioning, where you have to follow what is being dictated? It doesn't matter which side it is, but how strong is that?
Just before Constantine answers, because he's going to answer, I just would like to point out, he's actually an expert in this field and has worked on it quite a bit, so he actually will have, I don't know what you're going to say, but it's going to be really good.
All I have to say is I have no thoughts of my own. I'm just repeating what the AI told me. I think we've come a long way, particularly in the last 4 years, particularly in natural language generation as well as in image recognition. But it is at the end of the day a regurgitation of the internet. So you have to treat it with the same grain of very red irradiated salt as you would with everything else that you read on the interwebs.
I was just wondering how strong it is to control people's mind for influence, whatever problem it is or whatever direction they want to guide it. I don't want to be political about it, but how strong is it that it can take over and guide and control society?
Strong.
I don't know if you read, I think it was even just this morning, the article in the New York Times about the conversation with one of the reporters had with the Bing chatbot, and it was mind-opening. It's still clear exactly what Constantine said is true. It's simply regurgitating things it has basically read. So it's not trying to control, it's not doing anything in particular, but it still ends up with this weird point of view, like it tried to convince the guy that he didn't love his wife and he loved the AI instead. It's very strange and disturbing if you actually notice.
Well, how independent is AI that's not controlled at all? It has its own mechanism, it's controlling its own program.
We could tell you, but we would have to kill you.
We have a question over here, please.
You talk about the ocean that has more more water than we have on Earth. How is that determined? Is that through an assumption or an algorithm, or is it certainly not through observation, right?
It's all AI. Okay. No, so it's a really good question. Like, how do we even know? So I skipped over a decade of science of how we know there's even an ocean. So first off, we see ice on the surface. How do we know anything? So the way we know there's an ocean is because we with the JPL spacecraft, fly over the surface of it and can measure magnetic fields. And those magnetic fields show that there is something conducting under the surface. Ice does not conduct electricity very well. Water, salty water in particular, does, and you can measure how much water is there from that. The other thing we know is how much Europa itself weighs, and so we know, and we can also measure its gravitational influence as we fly by it. And so we know there's a rocky core, and we know there's water above it, either frozen or liquid, not clear just from how much it weighs, but because of the magnetic fields, we know it's also ocean. So we know that it's a super deep ocean. It's actually much deeper than our own ocean. It's a fascinating place. It's going to be really interesting to see those up close pictures from the next JPL mission that's coming up in a couple of years. I'm really looking forward to that.
You know the weight of the planet because?
We fly a spacecraft by it. So you cannot fly a spacecraft by something without measuring it and measuring the mass there, seeing its deflection. That's the simple answer.
Any other
Gravity.
questions over here?
The other way.
Someone asked where he got the red tennis shoes.
I'm glad you asked. The answer is New Orleans.
Thank you.
Well, if there are no more questions, thank you. Thank you for that.
Oh, it's falling, it's falling. Oh, yes. Radiation, so I'm gonna try. Ja, het is allebei in.
Oh, well. Tastes like salt.
It's salt. And
It's
this
just salt.
comes from?
Sorry?
This comes from?
My salt shaker at home. Literally.
Thank you.
American salt.
It's just salt. Also, really old fossils. Don't forget your really old fossils.
Ah, where are the fossils? Yeah.
Great, thank you.
These are them, the oldest, he said, on you can never touch. That's the oldest fossil that we can touch.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's heavy, isn't it? It's heavy. Oh, yeah, it is. It's dense.
Very dense.
Where's salt?
Oh,
Just
may I
tastes like
see
salt.
that?
Yes.
Tastes like salt.
Oh my God. That's wonderful. Very interesting. At what point in all of your findings, how long did it take for you to determine that your local